Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the next FP&A Trends Connect meeting. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for being part of this global project. So we are in the middle of our digital traveling. This is our Connect number 4. We had previous 3 meetings, one in Tokyo, one in Dubai, one in London. Now we are going to present this Connect from Paris. Our speakers are in France, Paris. And we have 3 more FP&A Board Connects. Just to remind you that the main mission of this project is to connect our global FP&A board community with our FP&A board members, and also to share the latest insights from global FP&A around the globe. My name is Larissa Melnichuk. I'm a managing director and founder of FP&A Trends Group, an international FP&A board. Just to give you a little bit of information about how we started FP&A Board and Connect project as well. So for the last 4 years, I traveled very intensively to all of those chapters around the globe. We opened FP&A Board in 27 cities, 16 countries, and 4 continents. And we had hundreds of speakers and thousands of members, and so much to share with you, so many case studies. Information about our next stops, it will be Seattle and San Francisco. It also will be Kuala Lumpur and New York and London. Now about the agenda. So we have 40 minutes and we will cover some key definitions, Janssen case study, how to use predictive analytics and machine learning for better quality forecasting, conclusions, recommendations, and you will have opportunity to do Q&A session as well. And at this moment, I would like to have this opportunity. I would like to use this opportunity to introduce our speakers. Both of them are in France, in Paris. Stéphanie Didier, who is Finance Director France at Janssen Europe, Middle East and Africa. Stéphanie is a member of our Paris FP&A board, and at the moment she leads this digital project for her company in France, but also in the EMEA region. This is the area of her interest, and obviously she's so excited to share the information with us, the latest insights. Stéphanie, welcome to FP&A Board Connect.
Thanks, Larissa. Very glad to be here.
Thank you for being here. And also I would like to introduce to you Tina Vermeyen, who is Digital Transformation Manager at Janssen. And Tina she's technical person, so she's managing this project from the finance digital technology point of view. And Tina will today assist Stéphanie, especially during the Q&A session. If you have any technical, any specific questions to ask, Tina will be there. Tina, welcome to FP&A Board Connect.
Yeah, hi Larissa. I'm really happy to be here, so thank you.
Thank you so much. And very quick introduction for myself. I'm based in the UK at the moment in my home office in Berkshire, just outside of Reading, not far from London. I'm a qualified British accountant, member of Chartered Institute of Management Accountant. And before starting my own company, FP&A Trends Group, and before traveling the world with FP&A Board Project, I was leading FP&A teams in Europe and in the globe, and I was responsible for very interesting projects. So very excited and very passionate about FP&A and the latest trends in FP&A. So housekeeping items. This webinar will finish in 40 minutes. We will have opportunity to have 2 polling questions, 1 Q&A session. You will be able to ask questions via chat box during the Q&A session. Of course, it will be pending time constraints, but if we don't have time to answer all the questions, we promise that we will follow up with the answers after the webinar. And of course, after the webinar, you will have opportunity to reply to those automatic survey in order for us to understand how we can do better and what subjects are really interesting for you. Very quick introduction. If you started with us from the beginning with this FP&A Board Connect project, you know that this is the second session on the subject of artificial intelligence and machine learning. And just very quickly to remind you about this incredible transformation that we see around the globe. So we are moving from traditional budgeting and planning, which is not so flexible and very often use methods such as last year plus and so on so far. We are moving to partially driver-based planning, to fully driver-based planning, and now to digital FP&A, predictive, prescriptive, artificial intelligence, machine learning. A lot of interesting trends happening right now, and exactly at this moment, we are finalizing FP&A trends survey on latest trends in FP&A, what is happening in this area, and I will share with some insights with you. But before I do this, I think it's a good idea just to those people who are not very familiar with the definitions, just to remind what are the definitions of machine learning and predictive analytics. So machine learning, this is the subfield of computer science that gives computers ability to learn without being explicitly programmed. And this is the definition from many years ago from Arthur Samuel. Predictive analytics from other side, this is the set of statistical tools designed for finding deep patterns in behavior of the targeted outcomes. But what is interesting, predictive analytics and machine learning, they go in hand. And what we noticed that those organizations that started predictive analytics projects, the next logical step is machine learning, using machine learning for them. So those are the definitions, very quick introductions. And before we go to the presentation, before we go to the case study, we really would like feedback from you. So I'm about to open the polling question for you, and I would like to ask you to vote. We would like to understand where you are at the moment. So the question is, how would you describe your current deployment of artificial intelligence machine learning for FP&A? And I would like to ask you to vote, if you can start voting. So the answers, you can choose only one. We are currently using artificial intelligence machine learning. We plan to deploy it in the next 6 months. We plan to deploy it in the next couple of years, or we don't have any plans for using artificial intelligence and machine learning. So please continue to vote. I can see that more than half of you already voted. Please continue, and I'm about to close the polling question and to share the results, with everyone. Let us see. Okay, so very interesting example, very interesting results. I would like to ask Tina and Stephanie to comment. Is it something surprising? Is it something you would like to comment on?
Yes, you see that only 9% is currently using artificial intelligence or machine learning, and that about half of that says at this moment we don't have any plans for using this type of methodology. I think it's a very advanced form of forecasting, and I definitely see in the future that more and more companies will move into it. But at this point, we can also see from this poll that a lot of companies are still making those first steps in towards the deployment of artificial intelligence and machine learning.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tina, for your commentaries. Stephanie, would you like to comment on this as well?
Yeah, sure. I think when you look at the numbers, still 1/3 is planning to deploy in the next couple of years, which is very encouraging for me as well. So that's not a topic that is completely disregarded, but there are some plans. So really encouraging.
thank you so much. I'm going to hide those results and to share the preliminary results from our survey. And this is survey, a very fresh one. This is the survey for this year. Very in line there are some differences. So from our survey, and we surveyed more than 320 people from around the globe, the majority of them are quite senior people. So the results of the survey that only 6% of all respondents currently using artificial intelligence for FP&A. But what is interesting, 17% of best-in-class companies, those companies that we class as advanced in FP&A analytical maturity, they already started to use it. 15% plan to deploy it in the next 6 months, and more than 37% plan to implement this in the next couple of years. But what is interesting that almost 70% of all respondents, they reported that using artificial intelligence and predictive analytics would have high and very high effect on FP&A, obviously positive effect. So those are the results of surveys. Survey will be published very soon. Actually, we are going to publish this on the 2nd week or 3rd week of June. So those are the results, and I think this is a great timing now to start this case study. So I would like to give a microphone to Stephanie, and Tina will assist with the questions as well. Stephanie, you are welcome, and microphone is yours.
Thanks very much, Larissa, and I'm extremely glad to be here with all of you. If you move to the next slide, I'd like to take you back in May 2018. That was a moment where all the CFOs and the FDs for Janssen & Janssen in the EMEA regions were getting together for a 3-day meeting in Brussels. And at the second day, after lunch, we were given a presentation from a small farm company about artificial intelligence. And I can tell you that presentation blew me away. There were 2 people on the stage, and they were telling me that they were using artificial intelligence, machine learning for their OPEX and their sales forecast. They were saving a lot of time from their finance team, and their forecast was almost 100% accurate. And I can tell you at that time, that was a big struggle for us. We were spending a lot of time, a lot of resources, especially in sales forecasting, and the results were really poor. So when I heard that company, that small company, being much far ahead of us, I thought we need to do something. We are a big company, and if we don't do anything now, we will be overtaken by this kind of company. And that was the start of our journey 2 years ago with artificial intelligence and digital. And if you move to the next slide, 2 years after we started our journey, I thought it was a good moment to step back and really share my reflection on our journey and what it meant for us. What were the key principles and what is making us successful in our digital journey. And I really believe that sharing these learnings with you today, that will benefit you in your company to make your journey, your digital journey, successful as well. So to start with on the key principle, the first 2 that you can see on that slide, that was quick actions that we decided to take as an organization. The first one, which may seem obvious, but was critical, was to make digital part of everyone GNOs in 2019. And when I say everyone, it's really everyone, from the CFO to the finance analyst. Obviously, I mean, the goal for the CFO was not the same as the goal for the analyst. But at least everyone in finance needed to have a basic understanding and needed to follow a basic training on digital to understand what it means for us in finance. The second thing that we did very early on in our journey was to hire a data scientist. And that was really a conscious decision as an organization not to rely only on an external consultant, but we really wanted to have in-house this data scientist expertise. So we could have someone who understands the business, someone who is technical as well, and can really be the translator who will help the organization to really step up and make artificial intelligence part of our day-to-day. And that was also a clear sign to the organization that we were serious about digital, artificial intelligence, and machine learning by the fact that we hired data scientists in the organization. The third point I want to highlight is very important as well, because you can have the best capabilities in the organization, but if the broad organization is not with you in that kind of change, nothing is going to happen. So ensure internal adoption was the next key critical step in our journey. And I don't believe that a top-down approach will work. So what we did is we did it in two ways. So first, I took the co-sponsorship of the digital journey with two of my peers. But the other thing that was critical for us was to have a local digital champion in every team in every country. What that means practically is that everyone, or every team, should I say, and in every country, one finance person was appointed as a digital champion. And you can tell me, okay, but our teams are so busy with their core activities that they don't have time to do that. I can hear that, but I can tell you as well that our teams were so passionate about advancing the function, about upskilling their capabilities, that they were all volunteers. So we didn't force anyone to be a digital champion. And they also saw the benefit of getting that digital champion role, because they could upskill their capabilities into a new space that is really important in our current world. And I have to say that these digital champions are really the change agent in the organization. On the fourth point, to really have in our communication package something that the broader team can look forward to, can share the vision. We designed a digital roadmap, and I will get later to it in the next slide. And finally, if you can move back, sorry, Lisa. And finally, after some months, I would say, starting that digital journey, one thing we found out is that being a local FD have my local responsibilities and a business to run. And taking the digital journey on top was really a great opportunity for me. But as well, to be honest, it was sometimes a bit difficult to drive two jobs at the same time. So that's when we made the decision to have Tina in our team, so as a digital transformation manager. And Tina is playing a critical role to make our digital journey a success, because she is the one who is giving us the gentle push to make sure that we focus on the right priorities. She's also making us focus when we have a discussion about what's next in our digital journey. And I'm convinced that's a big part of why our journey is successful so far. So moving to the next slide, I wanted to share with you the digital roadmap. And I can compare it to a compass. That's really the reference document that is guiding us and guiding the organization on the commitment we made as an organization towards our digital ambition. And what you can see on that roadmap is on the bottom of that roadmap, you can read change management. When you read on the middle of that roadmap, you can read capabilities. And linking back to our key principle I shared before, in our roadmap, we want to make sure that we upskill the organization the right way. The second piece of the roadmap is, you can read on the top, performance management. And that's where we are using, I would say, easy or beginners machine learning, artificial intelligence, and that's actually much more dashboard that we are using. But that's critical as well, because that's quick wins and that helps the organization to get used to new ways of working. And the last piece is on sales forecasting, and that's the one I highlighted on that chart, and that's where I want to focus on. And as you can see in the digital roadmap, the predictive forecasting is a much longer arrow because that takes a lot of time. So how did we approach sales forecasting and predictive forecasting? At the beginning, we started with the easiest way for us. You can say sales forecasting is maybe not that easy, true, but we decided to go the easiest way for us. What it means is, first, we looked at what was already existing in our company, and we found out that Asia Pacific had already developed some models, and we learned from these internal models. Secondly, we also started with the easier brands. And when I mean easy, I mean brands where there are enough historical information that we restated for exceptional events. And we were extremely clear as well on the output we wanted from the predictive forecasting. And predictive forecasting for us, what we wanted was a monthly forecast for the next 18 months. We wanted to have it on a brand level and at a country level. And that's really how we look at our business. We wanted really predictive forecasting to replicate what is needed for our business and have some kind of visibility. And that's even an improvement compared to what we have today, because usually we do 12 months forecast. And as I said at the beginning, not even with good quality. And on the next slide, I'm super excited to share with you the outcome, the fantastic outcome of the first pilot we made on the predictive forecasting. And what you read on the first column, what I call the human forecast, is the traditional forecast we used to do. Looking at the machine forecast, that's the predictive forecasting tool we used. And what you can see on that slide, what is fantastic about this machine forecast is that 4 times out of 6, machine forecast is more accurate than the human forecast. And when you look at the average numbers, machine forecast is more accurate on average than the human forecast. And that's true for 2018. So we did a pilot on the 4th quarter of 2018. And 2019, we did a pilot on the first 2 quarters at that time. And so fantastic results. And I can tell you, we were a bit anxious to see the results when we launched the pilot, but it was a great outcome. And beyond seeing that the forecast was much more accurate, it means that we could get some more buy-in from the teams. And that was a really good first steps towards the finance community in general and towards our business partners as well. So that was the first key step. As we are an ambitious team, we wanted to go further. And on the next slide, that's how we approach our portfolio. So looking at what on the right part of the slide, that's what we call the value app optimizers. So that's, I would say, the easiest brand for us, less complex. Still, they represent 60% of the references in our portfolio. So being right and using predictive forecasting on this part of the portfolio allows us to save a lot of time. And what we are using today, it's advanced algorithmic forecasting, and that's time series based, and machine learning. And we just finished, I would say, the last run of piloting and checking on the numbers. And we are about to replace for this specific portfolio the human forecast to the predictive forecasting. On the left part of the slide, we still have the complex brands. And that's the next step we want to take in predictive forecasting. And that's these brands we can't miss on forecast because they represent 85% of the portfolio in value. So that's critical for us to have good quality forecast. And when I say complex brands, they are complex from a predictive forecasting perspective because they are newly launched, they have several indications. So there's not enough history to be able to use the history to predict the future. So what we are using today and exploring, it's using advanced data modeling, such as clustering and analogs, to support this forecasting process and to replace, on the long run, the patient-based model, which is done on Excel and very heavy model today. So that's where we are as an organization. And we would like really to hear from you in that second polling question. If you can move to the question then.
I'm launching this question right now, Stephanie. So I'm launching another polling question. We need this feedback from you. So can you start voting right now? And this is about what is the key factor to further advance the digital journey in finance in FP&A? Please, can you choose one answer which is you think is the most important? Is it technology? Is it leadership support, skills and competencies in finance FP&A, or is it business partners buy-in? So please continue to vote. Just a moment, a few more seconds. I can see that more than half of you already voted. We still have a few moments, so please continue to vote. Continue to vote, and I'm about to close and close the poll and to share the results. Yeah, so those are the results. Ladies, would you like to comment on this? Tina and Stephanie.
Yes, thank you, Larissa. Indeed, there are a lot of barriers to implement, in your digital journey. And what we also noticed that leadership support is also key for us. You need sufficient leadership support to roll out a complex process like predictive forecasting is, and this is also what we see from the results. So we see that the number one for this group is leadership support with 37%, followed by skills and competencies in finance with 27%. Afterwards, technology with 20% and business partners buy-in from 17%. That the leadership support is key, and that of course the skills and competencies in finance are also considered as an important driver for the digital journey.
Thank you so much, Tina. So what I will do now, I will hide the results, and we will go to the next slide. So some lessons from Stephanie.
Absolutely, and really nice to see the outcome of the polling survey. And what I can tell you is that in this 2-year journey, we learned tremendously. And I couldn't have guessed that in May 2018, we would be so far in our digital journey today. And our key learnings, I'm very happy to share with you. Hopefully that can help you also in your own journey. It's about change management, and you mentioned it in the polling question. That's about leadership support. And when I say change management 3 times, it's change management towards senior leaders and get the senior leader buy-in. It's about change management towards the broader finance team. And I believe that change management towards our business partners, because what they get from finance is different from what they used to get in the past. So that's a change for everyone. What was key for us was also to dedicate specific resources. And you can tell me, you are a big organization, you can spend additional money or use some money to dedicate resources. And I can hear that comment, definitely. When you are in a small organization, I can imagine that it's much more difficult to dedicate resources. But when you really think about it, for us, it meant two dedicated resources, one data scientist and Tina as a digital transformation manager. So the advice I would give you, and I used in my organization, is also to convince the business that they need to support the funding of at least a piece of these additional resources, because they will benefit from a strong finance organization. And last learning is really on test, learn, and adapt. We need to be humble. We need to acknowledge that we don't know everything, and sometimes we don't know anything. And we need to adapt. And I have to be honest as well, it has not been a walk in the park and a smooth journey every day. Where we struggled the most was to really make the link between the technical language and the models. And we had the data scientists, as I said, but still, I mean, the finance people are usually people who want to understand all the detail, want to deep dive. And when you talk about models, sometimes you can't understand everything. So we need to really have good people we can rely on. The second struggle we had was IT capacity, because their capacity is not unlimited. And we needed to help to get some sponsorship and some support to have our project prioritized, because we really believed it was making a difference to the organization. And the last one I want to share, which was a bit more a surprise to me, was internal competition. Because actually, digital is a really nice and trendy space where everyone wants to play and everyone wants to have their project. So what happened in our organization at the beginning is that many countries or many departments wanted to have their own projects on predictive forecasting. And that's not efficient. So that's where, as a finance organization, we need to be extremely careful and mindful to make sure that we spend the resources the right way. And my advice there is really to have one department owning one topic of the digital journey. And when on the next slide, when I read the comments from the users after they saw the predictive forecasting outcome, I'm really hopeful that we are going to continue to make an impact and change the way finance is considered today. Finance is using their time. And that's how I want to conclude with the next slide. And that's really a call to all of us in that webinar. I really believe that everyone in finance, if you are a CFO, a finance director, or an analyst, you have a leadership role to play to change the trajectory of finance. And I'm a big believer that using predictive analytics will help us as an organization to bring better value to our business. And to be honest, when I read these statistics, seeing that we as organizations still spend 31% of our time on data validation or 14% of our time on data collection, that makes me sad, because I really think that's not where we are bringing value. So I'm a big believer that predictive forecasting will be an enabler, will definitely not replace finance, but will make us stronger as an organization. And that's how I want to end this case study and open it up for questions.
Thank you so much, Stephanie, for sharing your experience. Thank you so much, Tina, for sharing your insights with us as well. And thank you to all participants who shared your feedback as well. So this is the timing for Q&A session. And I'm pleased to say that there are already a lot of questions, and I can see that we wouldn't be able to finish all of them. But as I said, we will collect all of them and we will reply to you individually. Maybe it will require a little bit of time, maybe in a week time or so. So the first question to you ladies, it's about artificial intelligence and machine learning is using specific patterns from historical numbers. But what would happen right now in the current COVID crisis? How we can use historical data when maybe historical data can't explain the results?
I like this question because it's really to the point of yeah, what do you do when you enter a situation historically where you haven't been before, and what data can we leverage then to make a prediction? So what our first thoughts are is that we can of course leverage on the historical data that we have, and with the models that we've built, we're able to trend out a good first projection of the baseline, the normal baseline that will be. And then we can have the discussion on what do we think would happen as an impact. So rather than investing a lot of time to creating that first baseline, we can then just talk about what the impacts of the current events are. The benefit is that we already in our figures, because we have for a few weeks have been going into this situation, have some actuals already coming in. So what you can do in your systems is then say, I allocate more weight to the recent past than do the long distance past. And that is something that these technologies allow you to do. So it's always going to be a guess because there's no real, previous historical data where we can leverage on this global pandemic as it is happening, but we can make a good scenarios from the data that we have.
Thank you so much, Tina. Another interesting question. It's about work of finance team and data scientist team. So do you have a separate data scientist team? What is the segregation of duties, how you collaborate together? Or what any other setup do you have?
I can take this one.
It's a mix.
Okay, yeah. Go ahead, Tina.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay, so we have a data scientist who is part of the finance team, is part of the regional finance team, but is really dedicated to data science and working with Tina and team members on predictive forecasting, for example. But Tina, I'll let you chime in.
So we have a dedicated data scientist, but just in the organization, we have a lot of people who have the role of translators and who can work on some of the models. So they will not be dedicated resources, but we do tap into them for specific knowledge around certain therapeutic areas, etc. We also leverage on some external resources just to make sure that we get assistance with some of the models. But this is the setup that we have currently, yes.
Thank you so much, ladies, for your answer. The next one, it's about human touch of artificial intelligence. So obviously, artificial intelligence, machine learning, it's a great tool to deal with big data, but don't we afraid that we will lose the touch with people, and people don't like the black boxes or machine-generated forecasts. So how do you deal with this?
It's indeed a good question because it taps into like, how can we trust what comes out of a model if we don't fully understand it? And I think there you have to start off with a low complexity use case to just build up the trust in the solutions that you're providing. So for us, this is the value optimizers, which are the brands which are more stable, their end of life cycle. And this is where we know that even for people who are a bit further from the technical modeling, they can understand that there's use of these stable brands, that the outcome will be relatively okay in terms of quality. When we move over to more complex modeling, yeah, it's more complex for people to really grasp how it works. So what is important there, and this is also how we build it up internally at Janssen, is to not give a full black box solution, but more like what they call an explainable AI, where you know what certain characteristics are that make you give a certain outcome. Let's, if in case, for instance, if you use an analog, we know, okay, if you work in this therapeutic area and there is no other brands on that market, the take-up curve will typically most likely be like this. But we know if there are other brands on that market, the take-up curve might look different. And then this is more the shape of the take-up curve. So we do, by building in characteristics, bring some insight in how the model works. So it's not a full black box solution, so that people can more understand how it works.
Thank you so much, Tina. And I would like to say that this one will be our last question. Obviously, we have much more, but let us work on those and to reply to you personally after this session. So the last one, it's about the data quality. So was there a requirement to clean up the data before being able to move to artificial intelligence and predictive analytics?
That's of course always the case. I think when you really start into the journey, expect always that 80% of it will be in getting the data right, cleaning it, making sure certain outliers are corrected. So you do have to go through this process just to get good quality data. There are tools and technologies that can support that for you, but typically once you've done that exercise, you can really leverage from it, because the data quality will of course impact the quality of the outcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ladies. So this is the time to conclude our webinar, our FP&A Board Connect meeting. Just before we do so, I would like to remind you that we have the next 3 sessions, and also we have the big webinar, Engaging Intelligent FP&A Within Uncertainty. You will receive all these links with the presentation. It would be wonderful if you can register, and you will receive the recording and you can attend the live session as well. Thank you so much to our presenters and facilitators today, Stephanie and Tina. Thank you so much for sharing with us this incredible journey. It was such a pleasure to have you here at FP&A Board Connect. Thank you. I also would like to say thank you so much to all our participants, to our global FP&A community. Please stay with us. Please share with us any ideas, any trends, any innovations in FP&A. And I see you at the next webinar, which will happen next week. But when we conclude this webinar, you will have opportunity to share your feedback at the survey. Please, if you can kindly share this with us, it would be wonderful. Thank you so much. Stay safe and enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you.